We're going to be demonstrating a flow action that highlights direct data queries. This is a new feature that flow actions can have as a result of the new ability of flow actions to incorporate Lightning components. And what direct data queries are queries that go straight from your computer to your own on-premises databases or to your private cloud. That's not how traditionally data queries are done in Salesforce. If you look in the upper left here, you can see the traditional approach to querying information. You go up to the Salesforce cloud and you use a variety of powerful technologies to then reach out and get the data you need. But sometimes that results in you having to bring the Salesforce query back through your own firewall from the outside. And we wanted to provide an alternative. So direct data queries take advantage of the fact that the flow actions that use Lightning components actually execute on your computer. And that means that when the flow is on your computer, essentially, you can make that on-premises request and get that benefit. And this kind of shows you what I'm talking about. The flow is going from top to bottom, and so we now have these local flow actions that execute actually do their execution in Lightning on your own computer. And what we're going to do with this, what this action is going to do is it's going to connect to an Oracle database that's up on Amazon Web Services. And you don't need to know all of the technologies involved here. We used a variety of AWS services to reach that Oracle database. Let's take a look, though, at the actual database.
Let's take a look at direct data queries in Lightning Flow using local actions. We're at a point in this flow where we want to ask the customer for the last four digits of their social security number and then verify that against our database record of their social security number, and we don't have that full social security number in Salesforce. So we are going to have to make a query to the system that does have it. And in this case, instead of using the traditional integration approaches for doing external queries out of Salesforce, we're going to use a direct data query using a JavaScript local action that we've built specifically for this example. So the way it works is if you enter the wrong four digits, either because you are trying to steal someone's identity or you just forgot your SSN, you'll get this invalid. And if you go, oh, I remember now the correct order of the digits, you enter that in, and it matches and the flow proceeds. So from the point of view of the agent and the customer, this is a very simple process. But there's quite a bit going on under the covers. Let's take a look. First of all, so you can see here that I have a connection to AWS. Here's the URL, and it's a public endpoint. And the sample component that we've published, which you can install into your org to try this out, hits that same public endpoint. So I'm simply going to query a table called SSN data, and when I do that, it returns this database. So this is where the social security numbers are being stored, and there's an ID, a core ID, and what we're doing is we've got that in Salesforce. We've stored it in the contact as a external identifier that we call external Oracle ID. So you can see that Salesforce doesn't know Lauren's social security number, but it does know that the core line of business system records her as number 4325. So the query in the flow is basically going to go query this database, it's going to pass in the 432325, and it's going to get back the 9234, the last four digits. Let's take a look at the flow. So we have here is the part of this comprehensive flow where we're actually collecting the last four digits, and we store that in this caller provided SSN last four. And then here's the local action that we have created. I simply dragged that out from my set of available local actions that I have installed in this org. And you can see that we pass it the current contact's external Oracle ID. So we're passing it that 4325, and it expects back an SSN, something it calls SSN, and it's going to store that in SSN last 4. So we're going to get that value back, and then we're going to check it here in this decision, and we're basically checking to see if the value we get back from our call, from our local action, is the same as the value that the caller gave us over the phone. And if that's true, and only if that's true, do we determine that the SSN matches. And so that's indeed how it works. And you saw that example. We can take another look at it. I'm using our new action list here to select from all of my flows. And there are some interesting flow screens. If you're interested in learning more about some of these other features here, we've got, look for the spring demo video in the flow materials that are online. And so here we are again, and there is the matching SSN. Okay, let's take a look at the component. We've declared 2 attributes. One is the user ID you pass in, and another is for the SSN 4 digits that you pass out. In the controller, we're sending most of the work out to the helper method. What we basically do here is load in that ID, and we create a cancel token, which is part of the asynchronous best practices that are involved in local actions. And then what we're going to do is we're going to call the helper and then set up a promise so that when we get a callback, we are going to take the result that we receive back, and we are going to set that result in the SSN output variable. So that's pretty straightforward. Let's dig down into the helper. Here we're actually doing the main work. We've defined our JavaScript promise here. We're setting up the HTTP request, and you can see down here, all we're doing here is making a hard-coded call to this particular endpoint and passing it the user ID that was passed in. So obviously this demo not intended to be used for anything other than this specific example. So we open that HTTP pathway, and then we send the request. And then when that request is done asynchronously, this callback function will be called, and assuming that the correct status has come in and it's essentially a 200 status, which is success, we're going to parse the response and then call the resolve function, which is part of the promise. And that's going to pass the information back out here in the form of this result, which will then get set to the SSN. And then the final piece here is we've got the design file, which is what is necessary to actually tell Flow that it's allowed to have access to these two so that they actually show up. And so that's basically how you set up a very simple direct data query. Doesn't show you what we haven't seen today, how to set up authentication. But basically, anything that works in JavaScript is going to work here. The only caveat here is that when you set up a direct data query that makes a call out, you need to create a CSP trusted site to approve, basically for Salesforce to allow this call out to be happen. This is essentially extra security when you want to use JavaScript in the Salesforce environment. So this is necessary for Salesforce to allow this JavaScript to actually go make this call as an additional layer of protection. So thanks a lot. Give Direct Data Queries a try and let us know how we can make it better.